Welcome to the Conquest Era Overview. In this video, we'll go over a timeline, key events, key people, key locations, the lessons that we'll be covering in the next few weeks, and some optional resources for those of you who would like to dig deeper. This is a picture of the 12 Bible eras so that you can see the era that we are on now is Conquest. We've gone through the creation era with creation, the fall, the flood, and the Tower of Babel. Then we went through the patriarch era, the second half of Genesis, where we went through Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. And then we went through the Exodus era of Moses with deliverance, the first 40 years of Moses' life, then the law, the second 40 years of Moses' life, when he was delivered after the Passover and into the desert, and then the Kadesh Barnea, and then the 40 years wandering. And that brings us to the Conquest era. And the four main events are Jordan, Jericho, Conquest, and Dominion. The entire Conquest era happens in the book of Joshua, and the book of Joshua contains 24 chapters, 658 verses. The main theme of the book of Joshua is conquering and remembering. They go in and conquer people in Canaan, and then they remember by building some kind of memorial. And the key verse in the whole book of Joshua is Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. What an amazing promise. The book of Joshua begins with Joshua taking over for Moses. So we had 2 million people going through 40 years in the desert. The first generation has completely died off. And the new generation are all nomads. They've never lived in one place for any time. They've been wandering their whole lives. And there are 2 million of them. And they have with them the tabernacle that they've assembled and taken down and assembled, and the Ark of the Covenant. So when we see the picture of Jordan and we see the crossing of the Ark of the Covenant, you have to remember that there's also 2 million people with the tabernacle and all the tents and the children and the animals. So this is the whole new generation. We're going to find out, do they obey? Have they learned their lesson from the stories their parents told them and from what they went through themselves? Or are they going to disobey? Obey and be blessed, or disobey and be cursed? So here's the 4 main events. Jordan is the miraculous parting of water, just like the Red Sea. The Jordan split open so the entire 2 million people could walk through. Then Jericho was a miraculous conquest of a city. They marched around the city 7 times, and the 7th time blew trumpets and the walls fell down. And then the conquest, they defeat Canaan. You know what's kind of neat about them defeating the people in Canaan is they come in, like I said earlier, they're nomads, they've never lived anywhere, and now they have houses and vineyards and animals, and everything they need is all right there waiting for them. And then Dominion, as they finalize, they have several more. Then they have the division of the land, and we're going to have a story about Caleb and more about the division of the 12 tribes, and then finally Joshua's farewell address. Now, you've heard the phrase divide and conquer. Well, from now on, when you hear that phrase, I want you to think about Joshua. But what they did is conquer and divide. First, they went in and took the land city by city by city, and then they divided it into the 12 tribes. This is a little timeline just to give you an idea that we started with the death of Moses around 1407. And then went on into, there was a 7-year period, and then we have a 13-year period of a whole lot of battles, and then finally the death of Joshua, and then a 7-year period before the elders die during the Dominion. One of the best overviews I've ever seen on the book of Joshua is the Bible Project video, which we got permission to include in our class. And watch that once or twice, and that will give you an excellent overview. Now, there are 6 key people in the book of Joshua: Joseph, Caleb, and Rahab, Achan, Eleazar, and Phinehas. Joshua was born a slave in Egypt. He was one of the 12 spies Moses sent out. He became a leader at age 85 and led for 25 years. Caleb was one of the spies sent out by Moses, and he was from the tribe of Judah and later became the leader of the Judah tribe. Rahab was a harlot, best known for telling a lie. She was a heroine of the faith in Hebrews. Her great-grandfather was Lot. She was the mother of Boaz, which makes her an ancestor of Jesus Christ. Achan stole some of the devoted things after Jericho, and God punished Israel, and him and his family were stoned to death. Eleazar, if you remember, he succeeded Aaron as the high priest. He was the father of Phinehas. He assisted Moses in the census, and he helps Joshua divide Canaan. Phinehas was the grandson of Aaron, not to be confused with the Eli's son later on. He was the one from the Exodus class that ran the sword through the man and the woman that were committing adultery. He aided Moses and Joshua. The map on the left is a map of the Exodus from Egypt and then through the wandering in the desert. The map on the right is Canaan. And what I wanted you to see, those of you who went through the Exodus, we went through this map over and over, and the star is where Moses was when he sent the 12 spies into Canaan. And then they wandered for 40 years, and then here is the Dead Sea here, and this is the Dead Sea here, just to put that into perspective. So I want to go briefly over this map just as a review. We start off in Egypt, where Israel was delivered from Egypt, and then at Succoth, after the Hebrews left the first campsite, the Lord attended them with a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. And then here where it says number 3, we have where Israel passed through the Red Sea, and then Myra, where the bitter waters, and God healed the bitter waters. And then we have where they camped in Elim, by the 12 springs. And then I hope this is bringing back memories to you. And then the wilderness of sin, which is not sin as in doing a bad thing, that was just the name. The wilderness of sin is where God sent manna and quail even after they grumbled. And then at the Sinai wilderness, Israel constructed the tabernacle. Then we have over here the wilderness camps. The 70 elders were called to help Moses govern the people. And then they passed through the lands of Esau and Ammon in peace. And then the Kadesh Barnea, where Moses sent the spies into the promised land. Israel rebelled and failed to enter the land, and the Kadesh served as the main camp of Israel for many years, but that was the beginning of their 40-year wandering. Then Israel avoided conflict with Edom and Moab. And then we go up here to Mount Nebo, is the death place of Moses. We don't know where he was buried, but he died on Mount Nebo. And then up here is the Jordan River where they're going to cross. So you're going to see quite a bit of this map as we go along. Practical application in Conquest. Through the stories God tells us, we learn that God is our source of courage and strength in all circumstances. We learn that God will fight for us, that failure to follow God will lead to pain for us and can create troublesome consequences for others. We learn that God never forgets his promises, and he gives us a choice of how we want to live. But we have to live with the consequences of our choices. This is why stories are so important. This is why you drill them into your children's head, because if they could understand choices and consequences, they can avoid a lot of mistakes in their life.